There is an awful lot for us to get to this Sunday morning, but hey, every Sunday morning is an awful lot to get to, right? It's time for the roundtable. Joining us, as you can see, Democratic political analyst Marianne Marsh, Republican analyst Rob Gray. Great to see you as always, guys. So Karen Spilka sat in the chair. Reactions, go, Marianne.
Well, I mean, Spilka has definitely raised her profile a lot very recently, and she's doing it in a host of ways, many of which you addressed in the segment with her earlier this morning. But from going against Trump and her opposition to him to the practical of trying to reduce costs on construction materials so we can all build more housing, the cell phone ban, all of those things, and she's passionately opposed to it. You talked to her about ICE and all of that. So I think it's fascinating that she has chosen this time, and it's much needed, to not only oppose Trump, but she's here talking about the budget. She was at the Boston Chamber this week. She's on this show. I think that says a lot about what we're going to see in the days to come, which everybody should watch.
Rob.
She's put her finger on a hot button bipartisan issue, which is the cell phone ban in schools. I think she's going to get a lot of mileage with that. And I think it's the common sense approach. It could go through this budget. It should go through for those of us who've been parents of school children. It's about time.
All right, a new pope for the first time ever. He's an American. Pope Leo XIV made his first appearance on Thursday on the balcony there of St. Peter's Basilica, formerly known as Cardinal Robert Prevost. He's 69 years old. He could be pope for a long time, that means. He was born in Chicago, went to Villanova University. He spent much of his career as a missionary in South America. Most recently, he led a Vatican office for bishop appointments. The first American pope comes at a very interesting time in geopolitics around the world with President Trump in office. Rob, what do you make of it?
Well, the most interesting wrinkle to me is just that. Trump suddenly finds himself not the most powerful American in the world. And so I think that there's bound to be a clash between these two people, and I think it was purposeful from the Cardinals to elevate somebody to counter Trump.
Marianne?
This is a political show. Let's talk politics. There is no more political institution in the world than the Vatican. And in fact, the New York Times for many years, if you were a reporter who was going to cover the White House, you had to go cover the Vatican first. Pope Francis clearly made sure that Pope Leo would follow him because they're similar in suit. But it was the politics of all of it. We talked a week or two ago that Francis appointed 80% of the cardinals who were going to vote on this. He put Pope Leo in charge of hiring all the bishops for years now. This was a campaign, and it succeeded because it didn't take that long to get him to become pope. And Rob's right, the contrast between Donald Trump and Pope Leo, an American president and an American pope, says everything. And the difference between them, one is about division and vitriol, the other one is kindness, inclusion, and acceptance.
I just find it hard to connect that Donald Trump has some influence on who the next pope is going to be.
He technically has none, but Francis clearly made sure that he was succeeded by someone who would be the antithesis of Donald Trump.
Yeah, but why would we even come in Francis's thinking? I mean, why?
Well, so now Pope Leo, he's the most visible, most famous, most powerful American in the world suddenly. I think the Vatican likes that as a counter to Trump.
And I will just add that Leo has tweeted about Trump and Vance.
Retweeted other tweets.
Right.
He has not tweeted himself.
Making the sentiment that he disagrees with them on immigration and a bunch of
and he is a dual citizen, right? He has dual citizenship, the United States and Peru. Is that going to play a role here?
Of course, because he understands immigrants and immigration, which is something Donald Trump abhors.
Well, it's also the rise of the Southern Hemisphere as a power center for the Catholic Church.
The church is growing in the Southern Hemisphere.
That's right. And not in the North.
And in the United States, immigrants are making up an increasing number of the population in job zones, and many of them come from Catholic faith and Catholic countries.
Next item, ICE agents arresting a man at a Framingham gas station, even though his girlfriend says that they were looking for someone else. So now he's in custody in Plymouth. The man fled Guatemala 3 years ago following family members there. His girlfriend says he's not a criminal. He was working and was about to start the asylum process. This is just one recent example. Robert, are we seeing increased efforts to ramp up deportations?
Not increase, but steady. I do think that Trump is backing off a little bit because, right now you look at the numbers, 46% of Americans approve of the way that Trump's handling immigration. That's not that high. He's underwater on it.
And it's going down.
Right.
It's going down, exactly. So I think many think that he's gone a little bit too far, so Trump's dialing it back.
Marianne.
Well, let's talk about the footage you played earlier
In
with
Worcester.
Senator in Worcester, and that alone. More and more of these raids are going on by apparently law enforcement who refuses to identify themselves, often are masked, won't show any identification, don't offer warrants or any evidence to obtain that person, and they are doing it by any other measure, it would be called kidnapping. Most of the people that they have taken have no crime, no warrants, no anything. And by the way, in this case, the person in Worcester, they immediately took them and put them on a plane
Right.
to the south. Okay, it claimed that it was Bedford, which means they're probably using Hanscom, and they're court shopping, trying to get people who they most times are the wrong people to in a court with a judge who's going to say, get them out of here, deport them. And I don't understand why this has not come to a stop, because it is un-American, unconstitutional, and it's basically kidnapping.
Stay with us. We're on the record. We'll be right back.